The studio was buzzing with electricity long before Stephen Colbert appeared on stage. Audience members clutched their phones, some already recording in anticipation, while the band played an upbeat tune that set the perfect late-night mood. When the cameras went live, Colbert strode out confidently, greeting the crowd with a wave and a broad grin. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Academy Award winner Matt Damon," he announced with his signature flair. The applause was thunderous, a standing ovation greeting Damon as he made his way onto the set. He smiled politely, nodding at the cheering fans, but his eyes held a subtle weariness, as if he wasn't entirely in the mood for playful banter. He shook Colbert's hand firmly before sitting down in the plush chair across from the host's desk. Colbert leaned in with his usual mischievous glint. "So, Matt," he began, "you've made a career playing heroes on screen. Do you ever wish you were that heroic in real life?" His tone was light, clearly intended as a playful jab, but the words landed differently. The audience chuckled, laughing right on cue, yet Damon's reaction wasn't what they expected. His smile tightened, then faltered altogether. He shifted slightly in his chair and tilted his head. "Are you suggesting I'm not?" he asked, his tone sharper than the atmosphere could handle. A brief hush fell over the crowd. Colbert chuckled awkwardly and raised his palms as if to deflect any tension. "Just saying, sometimes actors take themselves a little too seriously," he quipped, maintaining his role as the witty provocateur. But Damon wasn't amused. His eyes narrowed, and he leaned forward, his voice carrying more bite. "I take my work seriously, Stephen. Maybe if you watched more than a highlight reel, you'd understand." The laughter that had bubbled moments before faded into an uncomfortable silence. A few nervous titters escaped from the back rows, but most of the audience seemed unsure whether to laugh or hold their breath. Even Colbert, seasoned in managing tense exchanges, shifted in his seat as the weight of Damon's words hung heavily in the air. What had started as a harmless joke had cracked the surface of something much deeper, and the tension spread across the studio like static before a storm. The tension from the first exchange lingered, thick and heavy, but Stephen Colbert tried to brush it off with another joke, hoping to steer things back into familiar late-night territory. He straightened his cards, leaned into the desk with a grin, and said, "Hey, I'm just trying to keep up with you. You've saved Mars, you've saved Boston, a broken bar, maybe next you'll save this interview." The audience laughed, some clapping nervously, eager for relief. But instead of dissolving the tension, the words seemed to ignite something deeper in Damon. His smile disappeared completely. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms as his voice grew colder. "You think this is funny? I'm here to talk about my film, not to be mocked on national television." The laughter stopped abruptly. A ripple of unease swept through the crowd as viewers looked at one another, realizing this wasn't staged banter. Damon's tone carried a sharpness that pierced through the carefully constructed late-night atmosphere. Colbert, staying in character as the confident host, attempted to counter with wit. "Mocking? Come on, Matt, this is late-night TV. If you can survive Jason Bourne, you can survive me." His delivery was smooth, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of concern as he searched Damon's expression. That was the breaking point. Damon leaned forward again, his jaw tight, eyes blazing under the studio lights. "You know what? Forget it. I don't need this." His hand shot to the microphone clipped on his jacket. With one swift tug, he ripped it off, the small device dangling by its cord before he dropped it onto his lap. Gasps echoed from the front rows. The crew behind the cameras froze, their hands hovering near equipment as if unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the moment unfold. "Matt, sit down," Colbert began, his voice cracking just slightly as he tried to regain control of the segment. But Damon wasn't listening. He rose halfway out of his chair, his voice booming louder than the band's instruments had minutes earlier. "Number. You don't get to clown around with my career like that." The silence was deafening. The energy in the studio shifted from entertainment to confrontation, the kind of raw unscripted chaos that no cue card could fix. The murmurs in the studio rose like a low tide as Matt Damon stood to his full height, the stage lights reflecting sharply off his expression. His movements were abrupt, almost violent in their finality, as he tossed the microphone onto the chair with a metallic clatter that echoed across the room. The sound alone was enough to jolt the audience into silence, broken only by scattered gasps. Stephen Colbert sat frozen for a moment, gripping the edge of his desk, still trying to process the shift from comedy to confrontation. He forced a thin smile and raised his voice, aiming to reel Damon back in. "Matt, it's all in good fun. This is the Late Show, not a battlefield." But Damon didn't even turn around. His back was already to the cameras, his hand waving dismissively as though brushing off the host's words entirely. His strides toward the wings were deliberate, each step an unspoken declaration that the interview was over. The security staff along the edge of the stage exchanged uneasy glances, but none moved to stop him. No one quite knew whether they should intervene, fearing that any action would only escalate the spectacle. The audience, caught between disbelief and awkward loyalty, offered a smattering of hesitant applause. Some clapped for Damon's defiance, others out of instinctive support for Colbert, but the result was an uneven, uncomfortable noise that filled the air with tension. The cameras lingered on Colbert, who sat at his desk with the half-smile still plastered across his face, though it no longer looked playful, it looked strained, painted on. He glanced toward the stage exit Damon had disappeared through, the studio doors swinging shut behind the actor with a hollow finality. Colbert finally broke the silence with a chuckle that felt forced even to those in the last row. "Well, a broken bar that was Matt Damon, everybody. Give him a hand for stopping by." The words landed flat, earning only a nervous ripple of laughter. The audience knew they had just witnessed something entirely unscripted, something that didn't fit the usual late-night rhythm. The band hesitated, then struck a few uncertain notes to signal the transition. Colbert shuffled his papers, leaned forward, and muttered quickly, "We'll be right back," before the show cut to a sudden commercial break. Within minutes, social media would explode with clips and speculation. A routine interview had ended in one of the most shocking walk-offs in late-night history.